Welcome to American Patriots Have Responded. It's been a while since we've been on. Tonight, before I actually get back into the Mutiny USA special investigation, this will tie into it. And so tonight I wanted to bring this into you. There's been a lot of censorship going on lately. Many of you know that, many of you don't. Many of you who rely on mainstream news, many of you who rely on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube to understand what's going on in our country, have not really been getting the skinny of it. Last week, a story broke on Hunter Biden, where his computer was taken to a pawn shop, and many things were found on that. And tonight I want to tie together the media again, their interference. This time, though, instead of mainstream media, I'm going to talk to you about Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and others. These other platforms that many people use are being censored. If you talk about this subject, it does not come up like regular topics when you make posts. They're limiting the distribution of these topics. They're actually been blocking people's accounts, even Kayleigh McEnany and the President of the United States, their accounts, for telling this story. The reason this story is important is that we're going into an election. And while we don't pick sides, it's very important that the voters have the knowledge of everything that's going on. And this story is so damning that they're choosing to block it because, as we know, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and all these other platforms tend to lean toward the left. And when I say left, I mean the radical left. I mean the people that we've been talking about that's destroying our country, the people that's going out in our cities and destroying our cities, the people that have been attacking people, killing people. And all of this is going to tie in. And you just got to follow the lines. And we've been doing that. And I hope that you've been enjoying it. According to the former mayor of New York, also the former district attorney of New York, Rudy Giuliani, there was, before Joe Biden went into politics, he was a lobbyist. And he was a lobbyist for banks. And what he did was he lobbied in the bank's interest, not the interest of the people. You might remember the whole MBNA scandal. If not, I suggest you look it up and read on it, and Joe Biden's part in that. So Rudy Giuliani recently put out a podcast. That's where he started with. Now, according to Rudy, he claims that Hunter Biden is an unrecovered crack addict, which seems to be pretty much public knowledge at this point. He would go to rehab, and he would slip out of rehab at night and smoke crack. So he's never really given it an effort to get clean, according to all the reports. And Hunter took a computer back last year to a Delaware computer store. We talked about that. He dropped it off to have it worked on. And there's a contract that you sign that if you don't pick it up within 90 days, then the computer becomes property of the computer store. They have to have a way to get their money back. They can't just sit on top of somebody's computer forever after they invest time and money into it to fix it. And so this computer shop, he had Hunter Biden's computer. And the gentleman, when all the impeachment was going on, become concerned that he might have something on that computer that would be exonerating to the President of the United States in the impeachment trial. He felt that there might be something on there that would be criminal, that maybe somebody need to know about. So, being a smart man, he made a copy of the hard drive, and then he turned the computer over to the FBI. Now, when he turned the computer over to the FBI sat on it and they didn't do anything. And he became concerned. He received a threat that people that don't talk don't get heard, was what he received from the FBI finally. So he sent a copy of that hard drive to Rudy Giuliani's attorney. And now Giuliani has possession of the copy. And on this copy, it has been on several news stations, OWN and Fox being one of them. There's been parts on Newsmax about this. There's a lot of things on there that don't look good. They aren't good. So he sent this in. His whole thing is he didn't want to control how people voted, but he thought, like us, that people should have the knowledge when they vote. They should know what's going on. They should have the story. And on this computer, there's files belonging to Hunter Biden, and there are files that point toward criminal activity. And also they have, according to Fox News said that they have pretty good confirmation that they also have Hunter Biden's psychologist computer, and they also have Devon Archer's computer. Now, Devon Archer is Hunter Biden's friend and business partner. He is the stepson of former Secretary of State John Kerry, who also served in the legislature. And Devon is Hunter's business partner. And the laptop reportedly contains videos of Hunter Biden raping a minor female, smoking crack, and having sex with women, and sometimes himself. Pictures have been released with Hunter passed out. It's been on national news with a crack pipe in his mouth. According to Giuliani, the Biden family has engaged in the business of crime, and their commodity has been Joe's public office. And Joe, you will see, shared in the process and the proceeds. While he was vice president, now this is all according to the news that we have been checking out, the documents and things that we have found. This is all according to basically most of it is coming out on mainstream news. Not on mainstream news, but on stations like podcast, Dan Bongino, Rudy Giuliani. These are names we know, we have loved as leaders in our country. Dan was a secret security agent. Dan has been a commentator on Fox News, not always agreeing with him, but he's a commentator. I like Dan a lot. Dan tells the truth, and he tells it like it is. Rudy Giuliani, my gosh, he took on, when he was a prosecutor, he took on the mob, and he actually put the mob in jail. He used the RICO standards for the first time, and according to Rudy, this is RICO stuff here that we're talking about. The whole Biden crime family, as he calls them, their commodity was Joe's office. Their commodity was selling Joe's office as Vice President of the United States. And this is very disturbing. While Joe was vice president under Barack Obama, he was a point man while he negotiated the end of the war in Iraq. Joe was supposed to negotiate an agreement for 20,000 troops to stay behind with immunity to prosecution, and he failed in this negotiation. However, according to Giuliani and other news sources and other agencies, Biden secured a deal for his brother, James, who had no construction experience. Does that sound familiar? James had no construction experience, but even though he failed in Iraq to do his job for the United States people, he managed to get a construction contract for housing construction with Iraq for his brother James. The money went to James, and about half of the money then went to Joe. And James had to pay part of the family's bills with his half. And as you'll hear throughout this seems to be a pattern. Okay. Then Joe went to Russia. And in Russia, Hunter received approximately $3.8 million from the wife of the former mayor of Moscow, who is now deceased. Her name is Katrina Petrina. Now the richest, wealthiest woman in Russia. She's one of Putin's allies. She actually caused her husband to lose his position in favor of Putin. And there's questions about even how he died. And I'm going to leave that there. During the presidential debut debate, now Biden denied all this. Biden has consistently denied all these charges against him. But when you have the videotapes, you have the audio tapes, and you have all of that, it's going to get a little sticky to continue to keep denying. Ukraine, Biden again was a point man, and the negotiation failed again. He was supposed to dole out billions of United States dollars to keep Ukraine going. Obama gave Biden the control over the money, and Joe's job was to distribute the U.S. money in an effective manner to reduce corruption in the Ukraine. To help the Ukraine against the Russian incursion in Ukraine, and would only give them blankets instead of firearms and weapons to defend themselves. Donald Trump came along, and that's when they finally got what they needed to defend themselves against Russia. According to Giuliani, Proshesky, now knew Biden was for sale. He was the president over there or whatever, and he knew he was for sale and had been for sale for 30 years. So he made a deal. He would employ Hunter Biden, and Hunter just got thrown out of the United States Navy for a crack addiction. And his business partner, Devin Archer, who is John Kerry's stepson, the former Secretary of State, John Kerry and the son of John Kerry, and pay them $80,000 a month for an energy job that neither of them had any experience at. Now, if you get thrown out of the military for a crack addiction, it's hard to get a job washing dishes in a restaurant, let alone an $80,000 job with a foreign energy company. This raises questions with me. And the fact that they had no experience. Most places, if you're going to sit on a board of directors, you got to have some experience in what you're doing. But then a text message was sent to Hunter from the number 2 person at Burisma Holdings, the energy company, saying they needed Hunter and Devin to use their influence. Their influence. Are you listening to me, people? They needed them to use their influence. Now, what influence would they have? Would they have influence at the rehab where Hunter didn't do anything? Would they have influence at a job they never had? Or would they have influence with Joe Biden? Hunter set up a meeting documented by 8 text messages. These are documented. I mean, these are not anything that's just out there. These were 8 text messages found in his computer, even though Joe denies it to this day. Biden bragged about telling Poroshenko that he had to fire the prosecutor, and later denied it after being on international television bragging about it. This stopped Burisma. This firing of this prosecutor stopped Burisma from losing their company, the owner of Burisma from losing his company, and the prosecution of Hunter Biden. So then we moved to China. Biden's family, since 2014, 2015, somewhere in that area, one Biden family member or another has been in business with leaders of the Chinese Communist Party or in business with them through the Bank of China. Joe took Hunter with him on Air Force Two to have Chinese to move out of the islands that they had militarized and to protect U.S. intellectual property that China had been stealing for years, and to help with the overtaxing, the tariffs that they were putting on the U.S. And again, Biden failed as the Obama's point man for the U.S. His job was also to get us, the U.S., some relief on tariffs, as I said. And instead, China expanded the military on the islands and increased the tariffs. This was in many major newspapers at the time. This was on the news, on TV. It was everywhere that this was going on. But at the same time, while he failed again, another failed attempt as point man for the U.S., Hunter managed to get a pledge of $1 billion from China to his private equity firm, which reeks of corruption, to him and Devin Archer and Whitey Bulger's nephew. No one in Obama's administration even took notice of what was going on. They never questioned it. It was never an issue during the Obama administration. Joe has repeatedly said China is not a threat to the USA and that China is just good people, good folks. People, we can't trust China. They brought us the virus, remember? This is a national security interest for us, folks. You can't have evidence on a political leader, especially a president or vice president of the United States, that incriminates them, incriminates their family, because it all becomes a bargaining chip and it is used for blackmail. Now, there's been accusations against Donald Trump, and they were made by the same people that are involved in doing all this. We've seen the Hillary situation blow up on her recently. We're seeing things blow up on the Bidens and the Obamas. And I don't know what to tell you. It's who you want to believe, I guess. But I want you to think about this really seriously. Can we afford any politician in office that is subject to blackmail? Now, on this computer, there's some other things I want to talk to you about. You know, I told you that James had to pay part of the family expenses. According to what Giuliani said, he had to pay part of the money, about half the money to Joe, and then he had to pay the Biden family's expenses for a while. that seems to have been a habit and a protocol, I guess you would call it, for this family's way of dealing with things and doing business. There was an email that was on the computer to Hunter's half-sister, and he basically told her that he hoped that she didn't have to go through 30 years like he did, having to run the family business and giving half the money to the big guy, who he later called Pops. That doesn't take a long stretch of imagination to figure out who the big guy is in Pops, and having to pay the family's expenses. It seems to me, he told her, he said, and I will not charge you half of your salary like Pops does. Do you mean that they had to pay Pops half of what they make at what they do? Now, I don't know about you, but I love my dad. And I would have helped my dad out any way I could. But I would not have just handed over half of what I'd done to my father and paid the whole family's expenses. This reeks of RICO. And even Giuliani pointed that out. This reeks of organized crime. I would be saying the same thing if this was Mike Pence, if it was Donald Trump. I'd be saying the same thing if it was George Bush or Barack Obama, which is getting more and more involved in this investigation every day. It's not looking good for Obama and his legacy either. Folks, we got a decision to make here in 15 days. If you haven't already pulled the lever or dropped the ballot or put it in the ballot box, or if you haven't taken the ballot and mailed it in. And I pray enough of you have waited to make an informed decision. Look at all the evidence on both sides of the aisle. Look at the things we've been talking about. And that you make a truly informed decision, because our country is hanging in the balance. I know the last election, they said, oh, this is the most important election you'll ever live through. Well, things have got even worse. The more we progress in this country, the better off we get, the more we're attacked in this country. Our way of life, our liberties, our jobs, our businesses, our homes are all under assault now. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, maybe you need to look up something like WokeNet or your favorite freightbroker.com and watch the live streams. And you'll see a lot that's going on in these cities that you're not seeing. And out in the countryside, we've seen whole cities burned. We've seen cities under attack by domestic terrorists and black supremacists. Anybody that stands against that is labeled a white supremacist. Anybody that stands against that is labeled a militia person or some far-right radical. And all people's doing is exercising the First Amendment by supporting the candidates that they support, or maybe protecting their homes, their businesses, and their communities. And we run into that with our organization that I run. And it's sad. It's sad. There was a day in this country when we could have differences of opinion. We could still go to church together. There was a day in this country when we could have differences of opinion and sit down at a holiday dinner with our families. Those days are over. You want to limit the number of people you have to buy Christmas gifts for this year. Just mention politics at the dinner table at Thanksgiving. That'll take care of at least half, probably, of your Christmas debt this year. If you do it at the right house, you might have to go out and eat, because if you mention it before dinner's almost over, you might still be hungry. And with that said, am I the only one that can see the division in our country? I don't think so. I talk to many people. Many people see this division. Many people are hurt by this division. And the whole country as a whole suffers because of this division. This is something that's politically driven. It's driven by the billionaires. We've been naming names of the billionaires. We're going to keep naming them. And now we're looking at, oh, wait a minute, we got a corrupt Russian that's buying into the office somehow, possibly of the Vice President of the United States. I'm concerned about that, and I hope you are too. We've got Ukrainians buying into the office, possibly the Vice President of the United States, former Vice President, I should say, and possibly future President. We also have evidence that the family has dealt for years, for several years now, with the Chinese Communist Party leaders as partners in business. We've got evidence that they have not only done that, they've partnered with them through the Bank of China. If not directly through the Bank of China, they do it. And then you've got a patriarch of the family. And I think Rudy best describes it as a crime family, who takes half or nearly half of all the money that's brought into the organization for himself, according to the evidence. This is not according to my word. This is according to evidence. That turns around and makes the person that gets to keep the rest of it pay his family bills, who has bullied people when they questioned him on campaign stops. He was threatening with a man who questioned him about AR-15s. He was threatening to a man who questioned him about Hunter's involvement in this case. He becomes very aggravated, very angry. You saw his anger when Hunter Biden was brought up during the first presidential debate. You wouldn't be getting mad if there was nothing there. So, I'm not telling you how to vote. I'm just trying to bring you the information that you can vote wisely. You can look at it. You got to remember the accusations that was made against the president did not pass muster for impeachment. Many of those items now are being brought up in the Senate investigations, and a lot of that has been exposed, including the fact that the FBI knew the FISA warrants they signed were illegal, that they were based on a fake dossier bought and paid for by Hillary Clinton. You know that Obama was behind it now. You know that Biden played a part in the undermining of that both Biden and Obama played a part in the undermining of the incoming president. You know that they had people installed in the government and even in the White House to work against him. You know that there was a lot of things that were approved by them that we didn't know was approved by them until recently, including spying on not only a presidential candidate and his campaign, but also spying on the President of the United States and his staff. You know that there was malicious prosecution that held no warrant Roger Stone, General Kelly, many others that went to jail. Paul Manafort. Paul Manafort was not a choir boy, neither was Roger Stone, but they didn't deserve what was done to them. And Roger's out of jail now. Kelly's, they're still playing a political game with him. The higher court has ordered the judge to dismiss the case, and he will not dismiss it and release it. This is still going on. It's been going on for months. These people's families and fortunes have been destroyed. And all for what? Because a candidate did not win an election that they thought they should have won. And you know what? It's the American people's choice. And it's time Facebook and YouTube, I'll get it out right in a minute. Facebook and YouTube and Twitter stop suppressing our voices. It's time that they stop deleting our accounts. It's time they stop suspending our accounts. There's a Marco Petro that conveniently his account was suspended until the day after election with Facebook and Twitter. So you stop and think about this. If we speak out, they shut us down. That's why we're at rumble.com. And I hope that you'll continue to come to rumble.com. If you see this on another viewer, when you go to look for us in Rumble, you can just go rumble.com, and there will be a little section at the top that says videos with a down arrow beside it. You click on that, the menu pops down, you hit channels, and you hit Cat News, and you'll find American Patriots have responded. And we're going to try to bring you the truth. We do have some commentary on our show, and the commentary does not have anything to do with the views of the channel or the views of Citizens Against Terrorism.org, which I am the founder. The commentary on the show is my commentary, the commentary of guests, the commentary of callers. That will be their commentaries, their personal views. We have a First Amendment right to speak our views. But I do want to make sure that you understand that our views are not necessarily the views of the organizations in the channel. And until later, this was our first time back since we've been shut down. We've had to deal with interference on computers. We've had to deal with interference on phones. We're still fighting that. We're going to try to bring you a regular nightly show sometime during the night. I can't promise when it is because we're going to have so much trouble. But just keep looking for our post. Keep looking at our channel. If nothing else, check it out the next day for last night's post. I'm going to continue when I can to do live breaks. But with all this interference, it's not helpful. I've been warned on YouTube because I called the people that's killing people, destroying our streets, destroying our cities, and assaulting people, killing police officers. Because I called them criminals, thugs, and looters, I was not censored, but I was warned about using such descriptions. Well, you know what? Those descriptions fit. And if YouTube decides to take us down, good for you. Good for you. See you in court. I feel the same way about Facebook and Twitter. They're going to push it, and when they do, we're going to fight back. And I hope that every platform out there will do the same thing. In the meanwhile, look for our videos on YouTube. You can look for them on YouTube. I'm not even going to bother with Facebook because I know as soon as I throw one of these up on Facebook, other than an announcement for a show, that it'll be taken down. So therefore, I'm just doing the show announcement on the Facebook. You can find it on Pat Freedom. You'll find the show announcement. You'll also find the show announcement on Citizens Against Terrorism on Facebook until we're taken down. At that time, I'm working on getting a Parler account set up for American Patriots Have Responded or Citizens Against Terrorism. I do have a page right now. The address is too long to give you. I don't know why they give me such a long address. I'm trying to take that down and start over. And when I get that, I'll give it to you. And until that time, stay safe, God bless you. God bless your family. And God bless the United States of America. And we will see you again on our next podcast.